Okay, so we started recording. Let me begin. Okay, so let us begin. Okay, so yeah, perfect. So yeah, so hi again. So we'll be starting with the lecture 5. We revised everything. So I hope it's clear to everyone. Anyone can at any time. I have the chart open in another screen, so anyone can put their doubts anytime, right? So every week we have a top performer in which we sort of give a task at the end, a hands-on task. Whoever does it like who is the first and does it the best, like does it in a very innovative and a very good manner, they are named the top performer for this week. So we have had 4 weeks, so we have had top performers for them. So Nikhil Kumar, I think he isn't present today, but yeah, so but he was sort of the top performer last week, right? Oh, Nikhil is here. Hello, Nikhil. Congratulations. If you'd like to, please just turn on the camera so everyone could see. Perfect. So Nikhil Kumar was the top performer, and I couldn't see Nikhil. Oh, okay. So yeah, and now let us begin with functions, right? So what are functions? Okay. So let us look at it in this manner. If I want to find odd, if the number is odd or even, it is very simple. Any number divided by two when gives the remainder zero, it is an even number, right? Now what I can do is for every number I can individually write that if if the number's remainder with 2 is 0, then odd, else even, right? But if I have to do this for 1,000 numbers, I will have to write this code 1,000 times. So what I do is I create a function saying is odd, and in that function I simply write if given number is divided by 2 and the remainder is 0, then even, else, odd, right? So this is the way that function would actually help me. And also they help us with recursion, but that is something that is sort of out of the scope of the basic code, but we will focus on it, right? Let me open the code screen and let me show you what I mean exactly. So my code screen is visible to you, I'm assuming. Okay, perfect. So let us say that I want to find, I take an input saying a is equal to input. Let me make it an integer input. Again, this thing is something that we've done in past lectures. Anyone can, if you even if you want to sort of look at them right now, just open them in a different tab. Open the GitHub profile and all the PDFs in different tabs, so you can go through them. Enter favorite number. Okay, and yeah. And now what I do, I want to check if a is odd. Okay, so what I do is I create a function def is odd. So I'm just sort of showing you how it is done, and I will be sort of showing you very properly about functions in just a second. So I just want everyone to look at it, and you'll have a very good idea, right? And let's say in is odd we pass the variable a, and here we check if a percentage 2 is equal to 0, return uh, return a is not odd, right? Else return a is odd. Okay, and once I do this, I've created this function. Let me put that input there as well. Let me make it more structured. So I've declared the function. Here I do print is odd. So I'm printing whatever result and whatever is returned by this function when I pass the number, pass the variable a. So I enter the number, say 300. So 300 would give me a is not odd, right? Because 300 is an even number. And here, instead of variable, I can pass any number. So I can directly put, say, 8989, right? So even if the input is not required, actually, let me just put in some random number. Yeah. So here, when I run this, you can see a is odd, right? Let me just run this again. Let me, any number I add, that doesn't matter now because I'm not using the variable. But whatever number is inside the bracket, that is what is checked. Is this clear to everyone? Is it clear on how functions work? Okay, Pallavi, don't worry. As I said, we have a dedicated slide here for that. Just give me a couple of minutes. When we go, we have a structure ready. When we go through it, I will be explaining what is the difference between print and return. Is that all right, Pallavi? Pallavi Sega? Okay, perfect. So I wanted to show you how a function is actually useful to us so that you can understand why it is important, right? And now let us look into inbuilt functions in Python. So this is a chart for everything sort of almost all the inbuilt functions, and sort of on the left I've also given you the link to W3 School. That's a great website. I refer them for these lists. They created very well. So I just screenshot and put it there, and you can scan this QR code. You'll be directly put into this page, or you can simply open this link when I share the PDF, and you will see all these there, and explanations as well. So now I've also shown you the most important functions in Python, inbuilt functions in Python. So printing is of course one in which with which using which we actually printed the hello in the beginning. Absolute returns the absolute value. So if I give it minus 2.0, it will give me 2.0. And round sort of rounds off the number, very simple to understand. Minimum and maximum give us the minimum and the maximum value in a list or a data structure. Sorted would actually sort the list. Sum actually sums up the entire value, all the values in the list. Len gives us the length of the list or the data structure. Type gives us the type of that particular variable. And iterator, it makes the complete data structure iterable, right? So let me actually show you this in code as well. Let us say, let us go, what about it? So let's say I print hello. Okay, so I print hello and it prints hello. Okay, so let me name a variable saying minus 30,000.444, right? So if I print a, my answer would be exactly the same. But if I say print ABS8, this would give me the absolute value of that particular number. So you can see the negative is removed because negative is just the sign. The absolute value of the number is the number itself, right? What are the number? What are the functions? Round. So if I say round, so it rounded it off, right? So because it is less than zero point 0.5, so it went down. Now if it was 99, it would have become, right? So it simply rounded off the number. Now let us say there's a list, list one, in which we have 3, comma 4, comma 5, comma 6, comma 1, comma 2, comma 3, comma anything for that matter. So let us now find the length of the list. So it has 8, so we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, right? So the length is 8. Let us say sum, it will simply add all the values, right? Let us say sort, it will sort. Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, I'll have to print it as well. Okay, let me save it here and let me print a. Oh, forgot to run that, sorry. Just a second. What did I do? Sorted. Give me a second. Right, so we were sorted. I'm sorry, oh, RA dot sort and everything. Okay, it's a little jumbled up sometimes. Yeah, so this is what we use to sort up a list. Now let us look at minimum and maximum. So let me say print the minimum. So we should get 1. If I say max, what should we get if we put in max? Anyone can answer. Turn on your cameras or simply put it in the chat. Come on, guys. Okay, the biggest ones. Okay, perfect. Okay, 6. Perfect. So we'll get 6. Right, and we also have type. So type simply tells us what is the type of that particular data structure. So let me show you. Right, so it should print list, right? And also if I have say 30,000 and I say print type of a, it should give me integer. Perfect, right? And there is iter as well. So it will simply make this iterable, and then I can type. So once I do this, I can put a dot next year. So then it would print the next number. That is, of course, just a second. I not converted it to next. Give me 1 second. I think oh, no bracket. I have no idea what is happening. Just a second. We'll try with this. I think we need to convert to a tuple first. Oh, oh, yeah. I'm so sorry. I'm sort of blanking out at stuff. Yeah, so we simply print next of a, and every time we do that, it sort of takes the next value, right? So let us declare the iterable here, and then we sort of print the next value. There are several ways, when I generally do this, I do not use this method. I simply put for I in list one, and I simply print I. So this is the way I have always done it, and this is the way I would recommend everyone to do. This is by far the easiest method. It gives you the same output at the end of the day, but this appears to be more readable and sort of reusable to me, right? So this is iterable, and these are the iterables and sort of these are the most important inbuilt functions that we have, right? Now let us look into defining functions. So how do we create functions? So we did create a function called is odd in the beginning. So there are several ways. So you can create functions without arguments and you can create functions with arguments, right? So you can see there are several arguments, sort of several variables that are being passed to this call. So let me give you an example of each. So let's say I name a variable def greet. And what this variable does is that every time it sees anyone, it simply says hello, and it also says how are you doing, and also how is everything, right? So this is the greet function. So what I do is I simply say uh, I say greet. So you can see that I used print here. Just the next in a couple of slides you'll understand why we use print somewhere and return somewhere else. So let me just call greet. So this is what it is doing, right? Now let me say I create another function by the name say greet name. And here I have the argument name that every time somebody calls the function, they should provide name. And it prints the exact same thing. Let me copy it from here. It prints the exact same thing, but here instead of hello, only hello, it will print say name as well. So let me simply add that here. So name, yeah. And how are you doing? Also here we will add the name. So this is if you can see, so this is actually personalized and this will change in value for every single name that is passed. So let me try. Let me show you how it is actually done. So anyone just let me take some random name from there. Okay. So let's say I will say read name and I take the name. Let's say Akshat. Okay. So let me say Akshat and let me put that in quotes. Let's see. So you can see the fundamental difference here, where we are greeting as a standard text. And is there a query? Uh, Rajan, I think, do you have a doubt? Oh, I think it was a mistake. Yeah. So greet is just printing stuff and that we're given. Here we are passing an argument that is the variable name, and we are using that in the function. Are arguments and why we use arguments clear to everyone? Any question in that? Is it clear to everyone? Okay, so Nitin, I'm assuming it's clear. Okay, perfect, perfect. Right. So now many people had this query, and now we will look at return and printing. So what does return do? Return simply allows us the output as an object. So we can reuse it, we can store that, and we can print it and sort of operate on it in the future outside the function as well, right? Printing only allows us to simply return as a value. So what it means is that it simply prints, it simply gives us the number or the word or whatever, and we print it. Let me show you the difference between the two in a second, right? So let's say that I have a function. Let me look at the is odd function. That is something that we can use. Okay. So here we are returning this, right? So if I want to here, if I want to say store the value of this variable instead of print here, I say store the value here, and then I print a, right? So it does give me the same result. Let me sort of start from here, and favorite number is 333 and enter, and I store this in the variable and then I print this. So this gives me a similar answer. So what this means, I was able to store the result in the variable. Now I can actually use this variable to do a lot of things. So what if I wanted to say add 2 to the variable? Excuse me, I'm so sorry. So if I wanted to say add another word to it, so I simply say yes, or if I say no, whatever, I wanted to add something, that answer is this. So this is something that I can do because I have stored the output, the object as an output of the function in this variable, right? So let me do this. So you can see that in this, I can see that I have added this line. Now let us say that this return was print. Now let us see what happens, right? So this would, again, let me put 333, enter. Now when I run this, this will, right. So this does gives me an error because this is none type. Even if I say simply print a here, let me simply print a here, you will see what I mean, right? It shows none. And why is there a none attached to it? Because it is simply printing something and it is simply passing the value, not as an object. So I cannot add something, I cannot remove something. Plus, that is why you return. So for example, after is odd, I want to pass this to an I. Let me create one more function. Right. So let me create one more function. Let me name it def is positive. Let me see if it's positive. Okay. So now if I want to say run it through this as well, so I just check if a is greater than 0, print yes, else print no, right? So here now I have two functions. One is checking if the number is odd, the other is checking if the number is positive. So here I think the number is 333, right? And you can see that I'm storing this in A. Now to simply, if I want to sort of go to that particular function, I want to say check for is positive. All I do is I put is positive, I pass A. So now whatever answer was there for is odd, it went into the variable A, and now I can use it. Of course, in this scenario, I'm converting it into a number, but converting into text. But let's say that, let me first go back to return. Yeah, let us say that we are returning A, and here we are returning, let's say A into 2, right? So we've converted the number. So here what we're doing is if a number is odd, well and good. If not, then we're making it. If the number is even, then well and good. Otherwise, we're making the number even, right? So this is something that we're doing. So now let us say that whatever has come in, we simply enter the number, and the function has taken the value, and I typed it here, and once that happens, it stores the output of this function into variable a, which then goes to variable b, right? Is this clear to everyone? Like, this is a bit confusing. I can go again as well if there's any query. This is a fairly sort of a longer concept. Let me, if anyone wants, I can do it again. Do you want me to do it again? You can write in the chat if you want. That can be done. Okay, perfect. So now let us see that we have a function that says make. Acha, okay, so add 2, right? So we have a function that accepts the argument a and adds 2 to it. So we say we return a plus 2. Bracket, yeah. And this is the first function. The second one is def multiply 2. And this also accepts the variable and it says return a star 2, right? Now let's say we take the input a, um, store the input in a equals to int input, and let me write enter favorite number, right? And once I do that, then it is going to add to the variable a. So what this will do is that it will give me the value. It will give me the value of add to. So let me save it in variable b and let me print variable b. Okay. So my favorite number is 3. Okay. Let's just make my favorite number 3. So it will simply add 2 to 3, that makes it 5, and it prints b. Now, if I had put a print here, what would have happened was that it would have, of course, because as soon as I call the function, it will be printed and you'll be able to see this, but the value of the variable becomes null. So you can see that it does print something, but if I want to say use b later, if I simply print b, it will be none. And that is because it doesn't store in the variable. So print is for printing, print is for showing everyone. Print is simply, so return is compulsory, but no. So return is not compulsory. As you can see, we can use print, but return simply gives me the value, the object, and I can use that in the future in variables as well. But print simply prints it. It shows the value, but it does not allow me to save it in a variable. So, and why is that important for me? Let me show you that. So let us say that I first want to add number 2 and then multiply by 2. So if I want to do that, one way would be that I print this. Let me print this and show you how it is done. So if I just print the values, what I do is I first do add 2 into a, and I then, because I'm printing, I will not be able to save the value of this, right? So then how will I actually pass it to multiply 2, right? So that creates a problem for me. So what I do is while I'm returning, I add 2, I save this into variable b. So now what happens is I enter my number 5 and it is added by 2 using the function, and variable, and sorry, yeah, so variable b has stored that value, right? So let me do that. I think I didn't run the file. Yeah, perfect. So now I have b storing the value. Now I have a variable c that multiply 2 bracket p. Oh, the capital M. Right. Another reminder that Python is completely case sensitive. So let me print a is a, and let me do the same for b and c. Okay. So here we'll be able to see what is actually meant here. Right. Let me see. Yeah. So you'll be able to see that a is 5, that is our initial number. B is 7, that is 5 plus 2, 7. And C is 14, that is 7, that is B, 7 into 2, 14, right? So is this clear to you? Do you now understand why return is important and how actually multiple functions can work on top of each other? Perfect, perfect. I think somebody else also had a query in the beginning as to why, what is the difference between print and return. Is it clear to you as well? I'm sorry, I forgot. Yeah, Pallavi. Pallavi, is it clear to you now? Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. So I'm glad it's clear to everyone. Right. So now let us look. Let us move ahead. Right. So now let us look at the types of arguments. So as you could see that we were passing only one argument. We have to, in real, we have several arguments that we pass, right? So we will look into examples, but let us see on how they are being passed. And let me show you that using examples itself, right? So there are three types of those. One is simply positional. That means whatever position we have defined, and that is the position we take while we're accepting responses. Keyword simply define the keywords while submitting, and default means that we are already setting up a default value for this, right? So let us name a function saying def make payment, right? And let us say sender is one variable, receiver is one variable, and amount is one variable, right? So this is actually something that would be used in, say, a bank or an application that we use every day. And here we want to store, let me make an array called transaction. So people who are new will have a little bit of problem, but I am sure everyone would understand how a list is created. Let us create a list saying transactions, right? And here it's an empty list as of now. What we will do is in this list, we will keep on adding smaller lists with sender, receiver amount. And let's say we put transactions dot append sender, receiver amount. So we are sort of saving the transaction plus, let's say, sender balance. So this is actually how a system, you can actually create a banking system using this. And let us create a receiver balance, right? Yeah. So this is, let's say that the sender and the receiver both have 100 rupees in the beginning, right? Right. So whatever the amount is, if amount less than sender balance, because I'm sort of complicating this because I want you to understand how it will work in the real world. Just look into this, you will understand the impact of functions. After this, I will also show you how what I was trying to in terms of arguments, right? So if amount is lesser than sender balance, that is we have sufficient balance, then print amount. No, I'm sorry. Print amount can be sent, right? So we're printing this and we will deduct sender balance minus amount, minus equal to, and receiver balance plus equal to amount, right? So there is a flaw in this that I will show to you when we move to future slides, but let's bear with me for now, okay? And let us store the transaction once we actually check it, right? Instead of in the beginning. And we can say else print error. Okay. So we have defined this function, right? Now let's just remember that we had such a function, but let us ignore it for now. Okay. Let us now look into how functions actually work with arguments. So let's say def function one, and we have a, b, c, d. Okay, let's assume we have four arguments. Now we simply print a, b, c, d. That is what our function does. That is all our function does. So now in a function, when I'm calling this function, I put four, three, two, one, right? So what is happening here? Let's just see the function a, b, c, d. They are at position 0, 1, 2, 3. That is, a is first, b is second, c is third, and d is fourth. Is this clear to you? The sequencing is clear to you? 0, 1, 2, 3, and sort of the first, second, third, fourth. Okay, so it is clear. Okay, perfect. And now you can see 4, 3, 2, 1. So now when I print this, A would become 4, B will become 3, C will become 2, and D will become 1. Is this clear? Like this goes without saying that wherever that variable is, that value will be equated. Is this clear? Okay, perfect. So these are called as positional key arguments, where the position defines as to where that value will go. Let me sort of make this a little bit clear for you. So the position of A was first, so that is why the first value goes to it, and so on and so forth, right? Let's say B, and let's say C, and let's say D. So you'll be able to see, so you'll be able to see how each value is there. So you can see A is 4, B is 3, C is 2, D is 1. Now let us look at keyword arguments. So let us assume that I want to say that all the position arguments are done, but I want to say that uh, C is equal to 5, and A is equal to 4, right? So what this means is that, again, one more thing to remember is that positional arguments will always come at the first. This is a valid argument, but if I say this is not allowed. So the positional, the standard arguments will always come first, and then on the right we would have keyword argument. So this got multiple values, of course, because we had a 4 here. So let us simply say D, and let us check, right? So 4 is 4, of course. A is 4, B is 3, C is 5, and D is 4, right? So this is how it will work. Now that is what is happening here. Now let us look at default arguments. So let's say in this variable D is something that I'm not accepting for the, I simply say D is equal to 30. I have defined it while I'm creating the function. So when I simply send in this request saying say 30, 333, this will default D to be 30. But when I pass some other value, you will see that it updates. So if D has no value, if default variables, default keywords have no value, they go to the default values. Does it make sense? So here in amount, I say that if there is no amount specified, we make it 0, right? So if amount is there, then well and good. If not, it becomes 0. Is this clear? Are the types of arguments clear to you, all of you? Anyone can just reply, please. Okay, so we have a couple of yeses. Wonderful. Right? So these are the types of arguments. So now let us look at variable number of arguments. So what happens is, let me say that anyone is allowed to give me as many numbers as they want, and I will find the sum of those numbers. So if somebody tells me that I create a function, say add num, and I say that I will take 5 numbers and I will add them. So it is very simple. I simply put A, B, C, D, E, and I print, or one second, or return. Let's say I print A plus B plus C plus D plus E. Right? It is very simple for me to do that. Right? And also I can sum all of them. So when I call, just say add num. Let me put variable 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Let me call them. Yeah, so I have this. Also, I could have done this, that I simply put sum, and I say A comma B comma C comma D comma E, and this will give me the sum of those numbers. Array yaar, sorry, some would accept lesser responses. Yeah, so this simply gives me the sum of the numbers that I'm trying to get. Right now, when I look at this gives me x args allow me to have n number of numbers. So I have not defined that I have 5 numbers, but what if I want to leave it on the user to give me as many numbers as they want? So I simply write asterisk numbers, or anything for that matter. So I can write asterisk n here, but let's say I make it a complete word and I say numbers, and here I write some numbers, right? And here, let me just show it to you, right? So it is 15. Now, if I had more numbers, it will simply use them as well. Let me add a few commas here and there. It will be a little more easy for us to understand. So you can see that all these numbers are added. Even if I have 2 numbers, it will work. So this takes variable number of arguments. Is this clear? That there can be 1, 2, or 1000 arguments here. Is this clear to everyone? This is known as xargs. Wonderful. Now we will look into xargs. So what happens is this gives us the ability to store these values as say a dictionary, right? So a dictionary, again, as I said, keys and values. So let us say that we have percent, I'm sorry, asterisk asterisk, and I put in data, some anything I want. So I print data here, and let me remove all the brackets. Yeah, and I simply say in adnum I put one. Gives me just a second. Let me see what value we can put. Okay, so let us put something. Okay, so 1 equals to the, let's say, the number 1, and there is 2 that equals to the number 2, and so on, right? So this is what I do. Now when I do this, this should store, oh, just a second. Yeah. I have no idea what I'm doing today. Give me a second to figure out what I'm doing. Hmm. Let me try it here just a second. I think I've somehow messed it up somewhere. Let me look at what you've done here because I took this as a running code. I wrote this morning and it was working for me. What am I doing wrong here? Can anyone see a difference? I surely can't. Let me take it here. What is wrong with this? I have zero idea. But yeah, so let us sort of concentrate on the fundamentals, right? And so we have our two. Now it is working. I have absolutely no clue what went wrong with this notebook. Let me just close this notebook. There's something wrong with this. Yeah. So we simply put in whatever we want, and this will actually store it as a dictionary for us, right? It will create a simple dictionary with values and keys. So this would be the number one, and this would be the number two, right? So this is sort of what we have. This stores the entire dictionaries for us, and this actually ensures that we can store use this variable and use these values whenever we want in the future as well, right? So this is how variable number of arguments are taken. Is this clear to everyone? We had a small hiccup there while running the code, but is this clear to everyone? Nikhil, you've raised your hand. Do you have a doubt? Neil, I'm sorry. I think Neil raised it out. I have no idea who raised it out. Whoever raised it out, if you have any query.
By mistake, I raised my hand.
You raised your hand?
By mistake.
Oh, okay. No, no issue. No issue, Neil. Perfect. So now we will look at the scope of a variable, right? So what happens is whenever I create a variable in Python, I have to make sure that it is allowed to be used everywhere, right? So it allows or disallows access to that particular variable by functions or by modules of that sort of part of code, right? So you can see that I defined a as 10, and while I defined the function, I changed the value of a to 4. But when I print a and when I print the value of the a inside the function, it gives me two separate values. That means the outside a is not equal to the inside a, right? That means that the scope of this variable is to the outside and to the complete code, but not inside the function, right? So this is the problem that we are facing currently, right? This is now what kind of scope do we have? We have global and local variables, right? Global variables are granted to all values. What we simply do to use the global variable here is that we use the keyword global. We just say global a, and now this 4 would become 4 for everyone, right? So just give me 1 second. I think I lost my screen. Oh, just a second. Hmm, start presenting. Right. So I'm assuming this is very
Hmm.
visible to you. Is this visible to you? Is this visible to everyone?
Yes, sir.
Okay, perfect. So the scope by using the variable global, the keyword global here, whatever happens to A happens to every value of A, right? And I don't look at this output. I think there's a mistake here, but this is a global variable. Local variable is what we looked at the last slide as well, right? Let me open the code and show you how what actually changes and what is the major difference in the two. Let me open it up just a second. So let us say that my variable is I say a is equal to 30, and I say print, and I have a function def print a, and it accepts a, and it says simply returns a. Right? Let me print a instead of the function name is print, right? And what I do is I simply just take a and I print the value of a, right? So I am accessing the global variable that is allowed. And when I say I write print a, and when I use the function print a, let me do that, right? We would receive the same answer. Just a second. Oh, sorry, and pass the variable. Yeah. So we would be receiving the same answer. Let me remove the argument from you, then we'll be able to get a better idea, right? So you'll see that, let me run this code again. Yeah, so you can see that both of them are giving me a 30 answer. And now you can see that I'm using the global variable. Now let's say that I add a is equal to a plus 2. So what this should do is that giving me 32 when I run the function print a. But it gives me an error because the local variable a is reference before assignment. It's a local variable that is not equal to the global a, right? That is why it is giving me an error. So one way to solve is simply define a as 0 here or a as anything here, and use it, right? That another that will give me the answer, but that is not what we're looking for, right? Now for it to access the global variable, we simply write global a, and now it will be able to update everything, right? So you'll see 30 and now it becomes 32, right? So this is how global variables work. Even in the example that we were trying to do, the transactions example that we were doing, uh, no, there's something wrong with Google Colab, that particular notebook that keeps on giving me errors. Let me just copy this bit and come back to this notebook. Where are our transactions? Okay, so we have our transaction here and we have the balance and everything. Okay, let me copy all of that. Let me copy everything. Let me add another block of code and let me okay. So this is we are sort of trying to replicate a banking system here. So that is what we are doing here. So we have the transactions, we have the sender balance, and we have the receiver balance. And here we have the function make payment. Now here you can see that I'm trying to update sender balance. Then what happens? Let us look at what will happen if we do this. So let's say my sender, we have only one sender as of now. Let us assume they are a, and a receiver is b, okay? And you can see that currently, let me see b, and we are only banking for one entity and to one entity. That is why there's only one balance, otherwise we would have a list of balances, okay? So and we pass the amount, and sorry, yeah, and we pass the amount as 100. So let's see what happens. It will still give me invalid syntax. Why though? Have I not run this function yet? See, the major issue here is that I will be getting an error because this sender balance is not global, and because of that, I am not able to pass any values through it. Right? I have. Oh, I'm so sorry. I got what I was where I was going wrong. Yeah. So I can see local variable sender balance reference before assignment. So what I do is I put in the global sender balance, global receiver receiver balance, right? So now I'll be able to accommodate global balance as well. So now of course my amount is greater than that, but let's see if I can make the amount 20, and let's see if I can make the payment, right? So name amount is not defined, and why is that? Oh, okay, so I'll put a capital A, and now it needs to be small. Yeah. So once I do this, amount can be sent and amount must have been sent. So when I print transactions, I must see that transaction happening. So I can see that AB20 happened. So A was able to send it to B and sort of make the transaction happen, right? So this is my transaction report. Now we can make the system multi-user as well. So what we do is we simply create IDs. So let us say that for every ID has their own balance. So let's say we have 1 rupee in the first, third, fourth, fifth. We have 5 users that have 100, 200, 300, um, just a second, 400 and 500 rupees. Okay, these are no longer sender balances. This is our balances in general. Like this will be the balance that our users have. Okay, so yeah, and these are the balance that our users have. So let me remove the receiver balance variable and let me name this as balance. Okay, what is B? Okay, now you can see that a function is there. Now we simply, instead of global balance, we simply say global balance, right? And so a variable has come to balance if amount is less than. Now we will store variables as sender balance. So sender balance is equal to balance equal sender, right? So I'm assuming that sender ID will be sent to me, and so would receiver balance be sent to me. So receiver balance is equal to balance of receiver, right? And so that is what my amount in my transactions would be. Now if you guys will see, we have actually created a complete system in which you can send from user, let's say from user 0 to 0 user 1, we send 20 rupees. So we try to run this, amount can be sent. When we run transaction, you can see 0 1 20. Now if I print balances, you'll be able to see at just balance, I think balance, yeah. So you'll be able to see that there will be some changes that will happen. Now what happens is we have updated the variables, right? But our list, the array that we mentioned in the top, this is not updated. And why is that? Because we are not storing the variable back in the array, back in the list. So what we do is once the variables are done, we simply should go here and say balance sender is equal to, I'm sorry, equal to receiver sender balance, and balance receiver is equal to receiver balance, right? So this would actually send the value and we'll be able to see that the transaction has been made. So you can see that 80 rupees, it went from, we reduced 20 rupees and we added 20 rupees there. Is this clear to everyone? This is a fairly longer example, but we actually created a banking system here, and we can send as much money as we want. So let us say that let me reset, and let's say I send from 2 to 4, I send 40 rupees, okay? And let me do this. So everyone has 100, 100, 200, 400, 300, 400, 500. And you can see there's one transaction and the balance is actually changes. So 260 became 300 became 260 and 500 became 540. Just clear to everyone? Do we have a good level of clarity with this? Okay, wonderful, wonderful. So we have clarity, wonderful. So you guys have just seen a proper banking system. This is something that we'll be using in our hands-on lab today as well. And let us do that. Okay. Thank you so much, Akshat, as well, and everyone. Right. So this is our code screen. We've done it. Now we will look into some basic functionality in Python and actually understand how they work. I will be skimming past them because they are not sort of very important. These are very essential things that we actually use in real life, but this is something that is not very essential for our hands-on activity. Thus, we will sort of skim past through it. Right, so let us do that. So let's say we want to work with time. So let's to use time, all we have to do is we simply write import and time, right? And then to print time, once we do this time dot time, it gives us the time in seconds that is elapsed from January 1, 1970 UTC, I believe. Yeah, so January 1, 1970 UTC midnight, we start, and this is the number of seconds that have occurred. Dot C time gives us the current time, and dot sleep puts it to delay. So let me show all of those to you. So when I run time dot time, these many seconds have happened since 00000 January 1, 1970 UTC. Right Now if I want to print the current time, so it will give me day, date, and the current time as well. So you can see that we have Sunday, May 23rd, 12:15:09, 2021. This is of course in UTC time. So if I say put in current time UTC, so it is 12:15, right? So you can see we are absolutely correct. Now if I want something to sleep, so if what I do is I put time dot sleep, I put 5 here. So for 5 seconds this code will keep on executing doing nothing, but it will give me a delay of 5 seconds, and then it will close. So 5 seconds have elapsed, so it is closed, right? So I am assuming this is clear to you as well, right? Is time clear to everyone? Anyone can just simply put it in the text maybe. Right. So I'm assuming this is clear. Oh, okay, perfect. So now we will move on to sort of the next bit. Okay. Um, oh, yeah. So after time, we look to date time. So date time gives us the year, the month, the day, the hour, the minute, the second, and the microsecond of the sort of the date and the current time. So if I put dot now, I will get it for right now. If I put it from, and now if I want to extract only the year, the month, the hour, the day, microsecond, the hour of current time, I simply put dot year, dot month, dot hour in front of it, right? So this is date time. How long is left this class? Okay, so for the next 5 minutes, I think we'll be looking at stuff, and then I will be giving a small hands-on activity for everyone to do. A very short activity today, and then we'll end this session. We did plan till 6, but I think we'll be going till 6:10 ish, 6:10 till 6:15. Right. I hope that's okay with all of you. I think I have a query is something about don't change the daytime format. Can I change? Oh, yeah, Pallavi, just give me 1 second. The next slide actually works with string formatting for daytime. So this is called a string formatted time. So we can present the date in a more readable format, changing format, printing only some the certain in certain way. So this is the key for string formatted time. So you can see there are several ways to sort of print everything. If you want full version of year, if you want month as a number, so there are several codes that we follow. So you want weekday 1 to 7, you want week number, you want to change DDM, all of those are present here. I will be sending that link in the chat as well, and you can use it, right? And now let us look into time delta. Okay, so time delta primarily adds a delta, that is a change and delay in time. So you can see that here in date time dot now, that is current date time, I can add a delta of 2 days, right? And once I add a delta of 2 days, I can see my initial was 2021 5/23. It goes to 25, right? So it is 2 days in the future. I could have said hours too. It would have gone from 10/16 to 12/16, right? Let me show you that in code as well, right? And let's see. So import date time, right? As simple as that. Then date time dot date time dot now. Let's run it. Yeah, so I have that. Now I want to say put a time. Okay, let me import that as well. From date time import time delta. Right. So plus time delta bracket hours equals to 2. Oh, sorry. Yeah, and uh, hours. Hmm, crap. Yeah, so hours equals to 2. So you'll be able to see that I have 15 to 30509. Let me print this in a better format. Let's see. Yeah, right. So you'll be able to see that we are at 1420 hours. We used to be at 1220. Let me show you that. So if I say remove this bit of code, just look at the time change. Okay, so we are currently at 1420. Now let us see. So we're at 1220, right? So you could have seen that 2 hours were added. So this is what is time delta. Okay, let me present again. Now time delta, after time delta, we come to a very, very important module that is called random. Don't worry, all these modules will be done in detail in the next session as well. But these are very important for you to sort of understand uh, several functions and how do we use them, right? So import random and then you can say random dot random. So this will simply print random between 0 and 1, so 0 point something, right? I can put rand int and it would put give me a random integer. So sorry, I'll just put, we have to put in a range. So let's say 1 and 200. So it will give me a random number between 1 and 200, right? There are several things that we can do with random. Let me show them to you. So you can have random integer between two numbers. You can have a completely random decimal float number between 0 and 1. If you want something from a range, you specify the range and you specify the jump. So what this means that it will start from 1, it won't take 2, it will go to 3. So it is taking a jump of 2. So normally it is a jump of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now it's taking a jump of 2, that is 1, 3, 5, 7, 9. And if it was 3, then it would become 4, 1, 4, 7, and so on. Right? So is this clear to you as well? We also have shuffling here. So if we're using this, we can shuffle the entire list as we want. We also can choose a random value of the list. That can also be done using random dot choice and random dot shuffle. Is this clear to everyone? Perfect. Thank you. Okay, so let me show you a very exciting thing that is called as sending email. So this code, I will send this in the chat. You don't have to write it again and again. So using this code, we will send an email. And let me give you some intricacies of how this actually works. Let me open up my original mailbox and let me show you how it works. I have the code here and I don't want to write it again and again. Yeah. So here you can see that I am inputting my name and then I'm running this code. So I input my name. So let me take anyone's name. So let me say I take the name Pallavi Sehgal. So Pallavi Sehgal. Okay. So my name is Pallavi Sehgal. Look, the user's name is Pallavi Sehgal, and then I run this code. What this will do is that from my email ID that I've given, this is a test email ID that I've created, it sends an email to my sort of my personal mail ID that I've entered. So you can see, hello Pallavi Sehgal, how are you? So this is very cool. This is very nice, and you can use this to do a lot of stuff. You can send bulk mails. There are several things you can do. So let me show you what exactly you have to do. So currently I've put in a test ID. You guys can sort of continue using it. I'm going to delete it after I'm done with this session. But let me just log in into this ID. Just give me 1 second. Right. So let me just add the same username and password and let me show you what will happen. So for the first time you log in, it will give you an error saying that you cannot sort of use this and there's an error and you will receive an email saying that login attempt blocked. You don't have to worry about it. You have to sort of move ahead and actually oh, I'm so sorry. Yeah, and actually you and sort of allow it, give it the option to allow me to log in and also turn access on for a less secure application. Let me show that to you. Right, so I have logged into the email and the test email and let me show you. Let me save, let me just confirm, move ahead and yeah, so you can see that I got a critical security alert that sign in attempt was blocked. I simply click on check activity and from here I like I've already replied to this, but instead of replying I will generally I can say that yes, this was me, and once that is done I simply have to do one thing that you should also do when you are trying to do this. Go to manage your Google account, right? Scroll down, go to security, scroll down, scroll down, scroll down, and go to less secure apps. Now, this would be by default off for you. I would recommend creating a separate ID for this. Create it, go here, click on this where it says on. For me, it would be off. Just simply flick the switch and it will be good to go. Just check that the same ID is logged in here, right? So after that, you'll be able to send emails. So I'll just show you. See, so all these mails have been sent to me, right? Pallavi Sehgal, how are you? And I can see that email. So, is this mail clear to you? Is how mails are being sent? Is that clear to everyone? Let me put this entire code in the chat. You guys can actually replicate this very simply. And of course, you can change the email ID and everything, but you can use this to send emails, right? So that is sort of the end of what we have to teach today. Now we'll move to a hands-on session, and please share the code in WhatsApp as well. Oh, okay, that can be done. I can do it. Let me share it on WhatsApp as well, and you guys can use it. Just yeah, code to send email using Python. Let me send you this. Yeah, so I am sending this. So let me tell you what today's hands-on task is going to be. I want you to create a function that first you take my name as input, then you put my name into a function that simply makes it a greeting, say hello and everything, and you simply write that hey, hello Aryan, how are you doing, and all of those. I need 5 sentences of greeting, and then you send it over into an email as an email to my ID. Even if the email part is not working, I would love to see the implementation that you're doing. It is very simple. So let me give you another. Okay, so 587. 587 is the port number. Do not change it. You don't need to change even a single bit of code up till your ID and password. Let me show you what you actually need to change. So you don't have to change anything. Simply change this, the username and the password and the username here. Put the username here. The recipient, of course, you can remain it to be the same. So I will receive the mail and I can check it. Right. So if you can send the mail, wonderful. If not, just make a again. Let me repeat. You have to take 5 questions. You have to ask 5 questions from me. Any question, name, how are you, like where do you live, age, whatever. I want that form, and once you do that, I want you to pass it into a function which will greet me on those 5 inputs saying, "Hi Aryan, hi, I know that you live in Delhi. Hi, this is good that your phone number is this. You are XYZ years old, whatever." Right? So I want that greeting, and I want you to send me all those greetings in an email. Right? Your time starts now. Whoever does it the first and does it in a good manner, they will become sort of the top performer for today. Okay, so do that while I sort of reconnect once, and then I would love to see what you guys have made. Okay, I'm here for any query that you might have.
Sir, I have one doubt.
Yes, please.
Sir, can you please explain that global and local variable part again?
Sure, I will do that. Everyone else, I think that is there a code where we can send email without writing the password? Without the password, it won't be possible for Python to access your email. That is why I said that you should use a separate, you should create another ID called test ID, and you should use that. Otherwise, the code that I've shared that already has a test ID that belongs to me, you can use that as well, like use the same credentials. And I mean, you're going to delete that email ID after, I think, this session, right? So I will again go to global and local variables, and you can, I think, Ronak asked this question.
Yes, sir.
Okay, Ronak, perfect. So let me show you global and local, and then we can, you tell me if you still have questions. Okay. So where the scope, where scope. Okay. So global and local actually means that global means that that variable is accessible and modifiable from any part of the code. Anywhere in the code, I can simply tumble upon it. I can add to, I can delete to, I can do whatever I want inside a function, outside a function, and I can retain that value, right? Now, local variables are accessible and modifiable only in that area. Tejeshwari, are you leaving? Like you can do that question, I believe. Okay, so somebody did send me an email just now. So somebody has figured out to run the script. Well done. Right. Sorry. Yeah. So the scope of variables actually tells me how it works and how and where the email that particular variable will be accessible. So let me show you. So here you can see on the right, look at this first. Okay. A is equal to 10 and inside the function I say A is equal to 4. So currently a variable has two values, which is of course not how we want it to be. That means the outside value is not being used. So here, don't look at the output. The output's a little bit wrong, but a is equal to 10, and when I use global a, then a equals to 4 makes the outside variable 4 as well. So these two, they should print 4 instead of 10. That is the error. But global variables can be changed anywhere, and local can be changed only inside the function. So the a is equal to 4 that I mentioned inside, this is the local variable, right? And a is equal to 10 is the global variable. But I can access the global variable in my local setting, that is the local function, by using the keyword global a. So now the a that I'm using is brought from the value from the global a to the local a. Is this clear to you, Ronak?
So basically, you are saying that the global variable and the local variable which we are creating. So in case of global variable, the value can be changed anywhere, but in case of local variable, the value can only be changed within that particular.
Exactly, exactly. And inside that particular function, if we want to use the global variable, we put the keyword global before the variable, and then we can use the outside variable as well,
But sir,
right?
in general, we can do one thing like suppose in case of global, as you said, that we will
Hmm,
have to use that term global to change the value of a to 10.
correct.
So, sometimes as we have created some function, so later on if we do some calculations and allot the final value into the a,
Hmm.
then that final value can be stored in a, so that
That is
the
what I'm
change
trying
of
to tell you. Let me show it to you. Just give me 1 second. Let me show it to you in code. I think then it will be clearer to you. Okay.
value.
So let's say that we have a variable a say equal to 100. Okay. And we have a function that says def use a. Okay. And we simply print whatever value of a is present in the global scale. So any function can access what is present in, they can access it, they can read the value, they cannot write to it, they cannot modify it, they cannot change it, but they can read it. So you can see that here it is printing in 100. But if I say I want to add a plus equal to 2. So what this will do, this will add 2 to a, right? Now I cannot do that because it will say that local variable a, every variable inside a function will be a local variable. A is referenced, that is I'm trying to use it, but I have not assigned it to anything, right? So what I can do is I can either write a is equal to 0 or anything for that matter. Let's say a is equal to 292. So now this will work, but this, now I have two values of a, right? Is that clear? Does that make sense now?
Yes, sir.
Right? Now if I want to use the outside a itself, then I do global a. So what this means is that my local a is now equal to global a. So now again they will give me the same value, because yeah, so you can see a plus 2 is equal to 102. If I was to change this to 200, then my answer would also change, it will become 202, right? Is now the scope part clear to you, Ronak?
Yes, sir.
Perfect, perfect. Right, so
And finally, in this, in case of global, if outside the function, if we assign some value to a, that can
right,
change. That can also change the value of
right.
a. Basically, that happens.
Exactly. So if I say is equal to 100 here now again, then my a would be changed, but my function, as you can see, it is also taking the global value of a. Does it make sense now?
Yes, sir.
Perfect.
And sir, one more thing.
Yes,
The
please.
slide in which you had shown that the what are the types of arguments present
Right.
in a particular case. Can you show that slide again?
Sure, sure, sure. Is this the one that you were mentioning?
Yes, sir.
Yes. Do you have a query here?
So just I wanted to see once more this
Sure,
particular
sure,
thing
sure.
because sometimes it's confusing to name the type of argument present in a particular function.
Correct, correct.
So will this slide be available in that particular link
Yes,
which you have
yes.
provided?
On the GitHub link, you can receive it. I will upload it and you will receive it by end of
Okay.
day. Yes. Okay, so has anyone tried that the form and sending the email? It's a very simple task for today. Like compared to other days, this is very simple. Any of you can become the top performer this week. So hi people, hi everyone. I think some people have been a little late. What is the status? Siddharth, are you doing this particular task? Yes, Pallavi, that will be perfect. Just be sure to sort of maybe put it in the WhatsApp group or just DM me personally or in the email. Just write your name somewhere so I can actually know who sent it. But whoever shows me the just the code and maybe shows the execution right now will be named the top performer for this week and will be put in the slide the next week and subsequent lectures as well. Thank you, Pallavi. So tell me, has anyone made something? Siddharth, Akshat, Nikhil, I'm sorry, Adele. Am I pronouncing it right? So Vanjan as well. Have you guys made something? Are you ready? I'm sorry, Adele. I'm not able to understand what you've like sent the message for. So are we going to have a top performer today? So Vanjan, Adele, Akshat. Hi Akshat, what is happening? Are you stuck somewhere? Okay. How's Adele? How's Vanjan doing? Are you guys fine? Okay, so we have Adele. Adele, are you like could you do it? Or okay, I think we'll just end the recording.